self-directed learning is based on I do and I understand. I'm avoidable. So the lesson plan for today's seminar will be under following headings. Now, what is the need for SDL or why we have to study about SDL? This is because now as we know that a new curriculum has been introduced by the NCI known as CBME or the competency based medical education. Now SDL or self-directed learning is an important part of this new curriculum and a specific time has been devoted to it in different subjects. For example, the time devoted to it is 25 hours in the physiology. So we have to study about SDL so that we can become self-acquainted with it. So we can direct our students further into learning by this method. Now there are various definitions which have been proposed for SDL. Now the most acknowledged and the most followed definition was the one which was given by Nobles in 1975, which stated that self-directed learning is a process in which individuals take the initiative with or without the help of others in diagnosing their own learning needs, formulating goals, identifying human and material resources for learning, choosing and implementing appropriate learning strategies, and evaluating learning outcomes. Now there are various terms which have been used for self-directed learning or SDL, like learning directly or self-directed learning, but a specific new term which has been introduced is self-regulated learning. Now the SRL and the SDL are broadly same, but the major difference is that in SRL or the self-regulated learning, the assessment and feedback is led by the facilitator, but that is by the instructor or by the teacher. So main feedback will be given by the teacher in self-regulated learning, but in self-directed learning, the learner will actively assess himself to make improvements and achieve objectives. So otherwise both SRL and SDL are same, but the only major difference is that in SRL, the teachers or the facilitators will provide a feedback, but in the SDL, the learner himself or herself will actively assess to make the improvements and achieve objectives. Now, what are the goals for SDL? These goals were described by Merriam, Caffarella and Baumgartner. Now they mainly specified that the first goal is to enhance the ability of the learner to be self-determined in their studies. So जो learners जो भी students होंगे उनकी ability enhance करनी है so that they can study themselves, they become a lifelong learner. Then to foster a transformational learning. This will occur because when they will self-reflect themselves. That is, after we have guided them, after they have studied the topic, are they able to reproduce the topic? How well are they able to reflect it? So to cause a transformational learning, to cause a change in the learning, then to promote an emancipatory learning and social action as an integral part of SDL. That is the learning mainly which focuses on the problem-based learning or the learning which questions itself, which has lot of questions involved in it, which is mainly focused on problem-based learning. So these were the three goals which were suggested by them. Now the various myths involved in the SDL or self-directed learning is that it is learning in isolation. This is not at all true. In the self-directed learning, the learners do not do a self-study, or they are not isolated. They are always guided by the teachers or the facilitators, and they are also surrounded by their own colleagues. So it is not a learning in isolation. It follows all or none law. This is a myth. It does not follow all or none law. So mainly by this law, as we know, it means that either the student will completely grab the knowledge or will grab nothing at all. Now this is also not true, because it might happen that initially he understands a few things, but as he progresses further in the SDL, he may understand a lot. Then it is another type of adult learning fad. No, it is not. That is like people might think it is another type of way to refer to adult learning, or just a catchy word to reflect the adult learning, but it is not so. Then it is an easy way out for the teachers. This is also not true, because the teachers also have to get involved with the students. They have to constantly provide a feedback to the students. They have to answer their queries. So it is not an easy way out for the teachers. Then it is involved with writing or reading only. This is also not true, because other than writing, reading, you also self-assess yourself. Then it is not worth the time devoted to it. This is also a myth, because ultimately it will foster a deep learning, which will be a type of lifelong learning. Then it will deteriorate the quality of study provided by the institution. No, it will not deteriorate the quality, rather it will further improve the quality of the study provided by the institution. Then it is also a myth that it is only made for Western countries students. Although it originally started in the Western countries, but now it is being adapted worldwide, and it is an important learning strategy. It is the best learning strategy. No, it is not true, because again, it needs to be associated with other types of learning methods also. Now, this model of dimensions of self-directed learning was given by Garros in 1997, which mainly says that there are three main components, that is self-monitoring, self-management, and motivation. But then he said that these three components are intricately related to each other. So self-monitoring and self-management influence each other, and motivation is again required in both these steps. And when all these three components will function together, it will result in a development of SDL, or self-directed learning. So by self-management or control, we mainly mean that how the student is able to set certain goals and objectives for himself or herself to study a particular matter. And the self-monitoring or responsibility is how the student is later able to interpret those, and whatever he has achieved, how he reflects that, how he is able to change his plan of study. And the motivation is involved in both. Now this motivation is not just the internal motivation, but it is also an external motivation, which is provided by the teachers. So the teacher and the student act together, and they act like a partner. So they strengthen each other and are responsible for forming a self-directed learning. Now the SSDL model, or the staged self-directed learning model, this was given by Gross, and this model is widely accepted. Now according to this model, there are 4 stages, stage 1 to stage 4, and it has categorized how the student and the teacher will behave in each stage. So like according to it, in the stage 1, student is completely dependent on the teacher. Now as the stage progresses, student becomes interested, then involved, and finally the student is self-directed. Now I will come to this model again after a brief discussion. Now, as we had seen the model, now I have diagrammatically represented it in the form of inverted pyramids. Now the yellow pyramid is for the teacher and the green pyramid is for the student. Now the arrow is pointing from the stage 1 to stage 4. So as you can see, at stage 1, the participation and the responsibility of the teacher is more, while that of the student is less. Now as we progress gradually from stage 1 to stage 4, we can see now the teacher's participation is reduced a lot and the student's participation or the willingness to study has increased. Now the student becomes a self-directed learner. So when he just needs some guidance of the teacher, and the major role is played by the student in the stage 4. Now these are some clip arts which are representing the different teachers in different stages. So this was again said by Gross himself, that a teacher in the stage 1 is like the one who is imparting his or her complete knowledge to the student. So as we can see in the diagram on the left side, the stage 1 teacher is pouring out his total knowledge into the flask that is representing a student. So verbs which are used to describe this type of teaching style is that the teacher tells, imparts, transmits, gives or conveys and transfers everything or every knowledge he or she has about that particular topic or the subject to the student. Now this type of student is the one who is completely dependent on the teacher. So this mainly occurs in the school. So like the teaching which we know commonly know as spoon feeding. So we teach everything to the teacher, to the student, and the student only writes down the notes and then studies them itself. So here the student is completely dependent on the teacher. Now as the stage further progresses, then in the stage 2, the student has become involved and the teacher will act like the person who will mold the student. Like the teacher will treat the student as a raw material, maybe like a clay or a metal, and the teacher will mold the student and will slightly give directions to the student so that the student is able to further develop himself. So the teacher here will act like a developer or will mold or produce and give some instructions and reinforce. So in this stage 1, the teaching is almost like one-way teaching. The teacher keeps on teaching and the student keeps on listening. But in the stage 2, the teaching is mainly like a two-way teaching. So here the teacher will also interact with the student and it will be a two-way type of teaching. Now in this stage 3, teacher will act like a guide. Now the student has become completely interested in the topic and the teacher will act like a guide. That is, teacher will tell him which path he or she should follow, how he or she will reach the destination. So teacher will act like a local guide or just like a leader. Teacher will just initiate and help or show or point the way, explore and facilitate. But now the major part will be done by the student. Now as the stage further progresses to stage 4, teacher will act like a cultivator. That is, now the student is completely interested and involved in the topic. The student has become a self-directed learner, is very keen to take the initiative himself or herself. Now the teacher will just provide some important guidelines, will encourage or will nurture, like providing some sort of fertilizer or some important points, so that student, after listening to those important or key points, can follow the instructions and can read further and study himself or herself. So as we had just discussed all these stages and the role of student and teacher, now the common examples associated with them are, so the stage 1 is like coaching, which occurs in like Kota Institute or Akash Institute. Then the stage 2, it is an inspiring lecture plus some sort of discussions. Then in stage 3, it is like seminar presented by the students. And finally in the stage 4, when the student is completely self-directed, which can occur in like an internship or during thesis, then you just have to provide some guidance or act like a consultant. So these are the 5 major steps which we follow now for the self-directed learning. Now the student will set the goal, then he or she will plan, learn, show and reflect. So suppose you give him or her a topic like myasthenia gravis and you have already talked about neuromuscular junction. Now the student will set the goal like he or she has to study again what are presynaptic and postsynaptic membrane, what is synaptic cleft. He or she will plan out the whole process, like from which resource he or she has to study, which book they have to follow, and then they will start learning from that, and then they will show, that is they will show some response. They will tell you like what is the reason. They may go further into it. They might tell you about the treatment, and then reflect is when they will self-evaluate and reflect it further. So this will help in formation of a deep and a long type of learning. Now, what is the role of teachers? The role of teachers varies with different grades of staged SDL, as I just discussed. They provide an insight for self-directed learning and encourage students. They help in choosing an appropriate resource. They provide motivation to the students, and they provide an important feedback. Now, these are the points on which the feedback is provided. So, first point is the importance of self-directed learning or the self-regulated learning. This will occur before or at the beginning of the task. Then self-efficacy, again before or at the beginning of the task. Here the student will rate himself or herself in a score of 0, on a scale of 0 to 10, that how confident are they according to that particular task. Like suppose they have to record the blood pressure, so how confident are they in that topic after the teacher has taught to them. So goal setting, now again this will occur before or at the beginning of the task. Like they will set the goal where they have to apply the stethoscope, where they have to tie the cuff and what position should there be, and then they will again do a strategic planning which will occur before or at the beginning of the task. Then they will self-monitor themselves during the task, like what is the position of their stethoscope, have they placed it right, or during the palpatory method are they feeling the pulse right. So they are self-monitoring. Now the teacher will keep on assessing them at these points, and the teacher will keep on providing a feedback to them on these points. Then self-evaluation will occur after the task, that is, the child himself will evaluate himself or herself after the completion of the task, whether they completed the task successfully or not. Then there can be attribution beliefs. So it is the role of the teacher to provide a feedback on attribution beliefs. These mainly mean that, like, a student underperforms, then he or she may say that I got a difficult task, or a difficult question was asked from me, or a difficult topic was given to me. So you will have to motivate them or build up their confidence that nothing happens by luck or by chance. It was because you didn't study and or you did not study properly. So you can do it better next time. Then certain adaptive changes will occur. So the teacher will provide the feedback on adaptive changes. Again, this will occur after the task. So how the student adapts himself or herself after the task, and then again there will be a feedback on self-efficacy. That is, the student again will rate their confidence in completing the task. So based on the first and second self-efficacy and their scores, you can predict whether the student is underconfident, like if he scores better after the task and he himself estimated it less, then the student is underconfident, or the student is overconfident. And again, the teacher will guide him or her accordingly. Now, the various advantages of SDL or self-directed learning are, the most important advantage is that SDL is a deep and permanent learning. So mainly there are three types of learning: deep, superficial and strategic. So deep learning is the type of learning when we build our concepts and we remember it for a longer time. Superficial learning is when we read a topic superficially just to be able to answer. And the third type of learning which is commonly practiced is strategic learning, where the students get important questions marked from their seniors, or they take last 10 years paper and only solve those questions. So SDL is a type of learning which promotes deep and permanent learning. So if we encourage the students to follow this pathway, it will help them to develop a deep and permanent learning. So other advantages are, the learners will become self-motivated, self-confident, independent and goal-oriented. Learners will develop a curiosity, that is an inquisitive thinking, like why is it happening, what is happening. So they will develop that curiosity and they will be willing to try new things. They will be able to face challenges and develop problem solving thinking. They are able to self-plan and better judge the situation. They become deep learners and develop a lifelong learning habit. Then they develop better awareness of their responsibility towards learning. They develop leadership qualities. They develop time management skills and have high self-esteem. Next. Now the disadvantages are that some of these students might be unable to engage because they lack independence, confidence or resources. Now again, it will be the role of the teacher to motivate such students. Then there can be possibility of frequent error, and sometimes it misguides the students how to learn. Then it needs to be combined with other learning methods for content to be fully learned. Like, you cannot directly ask a student what is sliding filament theory. First you will need to answer him, first you will need to teach him about the structure of the skeletal muscle, how the contraction is occurring, and then he might do some SDL on that topic. Then SDL is a little time consuming. Now the different tools of providing SDL are, number one, shown in the red color, is a problem-based learning. Then assessment can be there. Then a blended learning to support SDL, cognition and metacognition to enhance SDL, cooperative learning, and indigenous knowledge and contextualized learning to enhance SDL. Now what is problem-based learning? So initially there was a traditional learning which was we used to completely spoon feed the student and used to tell him everything the person needs to know. He used to memorize it, and then a problem was assigned to the student and it was illustrated how to use it. But in problem-based learning, we first give a problem to the student, then the student identifies what he needs to know and he or she learns and applies it to solve the problem. Now this is a self-rating scale for evaluation of the SDL. It is a 60-item questionnaire which was made, and it was done so that students can self-assess themselves on the level of their self-directed learning. And each question was assigned a score from 1 to 5. So maximum score could be 300 and minimum was 60. And on the basis of the range, it was assessed what is the level of self-directed learning, and further guidance and interpretation done. New dimension which has been added to it is that, so we read the 3 dimensions. Now the 4th dimension has been added, that is the context or the background or the place where the learning is taking place. And this is particularly true in today's world of online teaching, where we actually do not know whether the student is actually learning or not. So a 4th dimension has been added. Next. So at the end, I would just like to conclude that in self-directed learning, suppose the student has to reach from point A to point B. Now it is the role of the teachers to provide various resources or various pathways, and the student himself or herself will choose a particular resource or the pathway to reach that point B, and again the teachers will assess and will provide a feedback that how their performance was or how they can improve it. So it is an important aspect of adult education. Then medical faculty should ensure that the curriculum includes self-directed learning experiences to allow the students to develop lifelong learning skills. So these were the references. That's all for today. Thank you.